We are now talking to RotoWire assistant baseball editor James Anderson. James, what's going on, bud?
Hey, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. You heard the craziness of some hockey conversation. So why don't we get into baseball? Before we do that, how are you and your family doing from the whole COVID situation?
Oh, we're thankfully very fine. Really haven't been affected by it that much at all here. So thankful for that. But appreciate you asking. I hope you guys are doing okay as well.
Where are you located, by the way?
Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
That means you're a Badger fan. Errol's going to love that.
I'm not actually.
Oh, you're not? All right.
I went to University of Minnesota.
Oh, so. There you go. So you're bitter rivals. There you go.
I was about to say that because I hate the Wisconsin Badgers. Okay, so I like you already.
Okay with me.
Okay, I like you already. And by the way, if you haven't, being that you live in Wisconsin, I'm sure you checked out the Jeffrey Dahmer story on Netflix. Have you checked that out yet?
Shoot, I actually haven't. That does sound like something that I need to take a look at.
Oh, I think you'll like it. I think I haven't. I know the story, and I'm like waiting to watch it with my girlfriend. But I've heard a lot of great reviews on it, and being that you live in Wisconsin and where it happened in Wisconsin, I think it'd be interesting to check it out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll add it to the list. Serial killers are something Wisconsin's known for. So.
well, a lot of weird places: Seattle, Wisconsin, Portland. I mean, craziest Utah, places that you wouldn't think that you would find serial killers. They're nice, beautiful places, but
maybe they ice fishing is one of their motives or something.
I doubt ice fishing is the first motive they have before they kill somebody, but okay. As everybody knows, we're talking to RotoWire assistant baseball editor James Anderson. Why don't we get into the Mets first, the Mets and the Braves. The National League East is neck and neck right now. A lot of Met fans are worried that they're not going to win the divisions. Division. They've been really in first place all season long, except maybe one stint, which was very light, and then they took over first place. And the Mets spent a lot of money the last 2 years. You're talking about their owner and Steve Cohen, Uncle Stevie over here, that spent over $1 billion. What is going on as far as what you have seen in the National League East? Do the Mets win out this division?
I actually think I would take Atlanta at this point. They always seem to just come on super strong in the second half, and I thought the Mets had a good offseason, but at the end of the day, like the Braves just have more young talent that's ready to help them, that's ready to kind of come in and provide depth later in the season. I think the Mets had kind of a mediocre trade deadline. Like J.D. Davis has already hit, I don't know, like 4 homers with the Giants or whatever since they got rid of him. I just think that, I think Atlanta's just playing better, and I think that they are getting contributions from more places on the roster.
So what about the trade deadline for the Mets? Is there something that you would have done in order to improve it? I was always saying that they should go for more left-handed pitching because they really lack that on that team. A lot of other people were thinking the DH spot and the catcher spot. So what would you have done, and either with a player or a position?
I think that, well, that trade I referenced was just like, it was a negative. They gave up the best hitter to get an inferior hitter, and they weren't really using Davis the way that I would have all season anyways. But, I think just pushing more chips into the middle to try to get, help in the bullpen, help kind of, rotation depth. Although at the time I did think David Peterson was going to be a pretty good source of rotation depth, but that hasn't really materialized the way I expected. But it just seems like they didn't really do much of anything.
We are talking to RotoWire assistant baseball editor James Anderson. You look at the National League, and the American League is pretty much, it's set. It's not in stone yet. Houston, the Yankees, Cleveland, they all clinched. It looks like it's really a fight on maybe one wild card spot. I mean, Toronto looks like they're getting in. They're almost a lock. Seattle is probably going to get in, and it's Tampa. I think they already know who the locks are. When it comes to the American League, the National League, there's no lock in yet. I mean, Atlanta and the Mets, and St. Louis, and obviously the Dodgers. There are 2 spots left: Milwaukee, San Diego, Philadelphia. Those are the 3 teams fighting for that spot. Who do you think out of those 2 other spots are going to win and get into the playoffs?
I'd like to say my Brewers, but I think San Diego's got more talent. I think they're going to get in, and it really does kind of come down to the Phillies versus the Brewers there. I don't really believe in either team that much at all. I think that whoever gets in is probably going to get waxed pretty good.
Don't say that, because we've seen baseball, and baseball's been very, very weird over the years. A team that squeaks into the playoffs. Philadelphia made some interesting moves at the trade deadline. They added Robertson to that bullpen. I think he's helped the bullpen out. I like the coach change. Girardi just has been absolutely horrible. They brought Thompson in. The team and the players abide into his play calling on the bench and his managing. I think that this team has power. Bryce Harper came back. I think they're very dangerous. I think
they have a ton of talent.
Yes.
The one thing that scares me is just their defense is just really bad.
Yeah, they're putrid. Yes.
So like that in the playoffs, I feel like that always. If you got a defense that's this bad, it's just going to cost you games at the worst time. So I think I am going to pick the Phillies to get in over the Brewers, but I hate just how bad their defense is. I mean, I think that's you need to have that kind of that area of the game covered if you're going to make a run as like a 6 seed.
Yeah, you brought up the position player defense. I'll never forget the Tigers in the early 2010s from like 10 to 13. Like, how loaded was their offense and their pitching, and then their defense was just so awful that it cost them so many games.
Yeah. I mean, you can pull it off, but your offense just needs to be just hitting a ton of homers like all the time. You just really can't afford to have down games. But I could talk myself into just Nola and Wheeler being too good for it to matter. But what are we talking about them getting, more than a round deep here? I don't really think they have the talent across the board to match up with teams like the Dodgers and the Braves.
So are there any other teams that you would consider those types of sleepers in both leagues, both the American League and the National League? Because we think that the Yankees and Astros are probably the obvious powerhouses of the American League. But
yes,
what about the sleepers in their league and in the National League? Could you see the Padres? Could you see the Cardinals? Somebody like that?
I could see the Cardinals, getting some magic and just kind of going on a run, Cardinals style. They don't really have the high-end talent on the pitching side to me that some of these other teams do, but I could just see their offense just being really tough outs up and down the lineup. And in the American League, I really think you can make a case for almost all these teams. I mean, they all have just really impressive strengths. I think Cleveland's bullpen doesn't get enough credit. I think they go 4 or 5 deep of just really impactful relievers, and obviously they've got a pretty solid top of the rotation. I could see the Jays riding, Manoah and Gaussman and their 3 or 4 best hitters. But I think in the NL, I think the Cardinals stand out as, unless you think the Braves count for that, but I think that since they've got hardware, so I think the Cardinals stand out as maybe an.
They're defending champs. They're not really a sleeper.
Right.
Well, first of all, I think the Cardinals adding Montgomery, I think that was a big move for them. I think you add that to Wainwright. And I've always said this as a Yankee fan. By the way, we are talking to RotoWire's assistant baseball editor, James Anderson. But I've always said that Jordan Montgomery has been the best Yankee starting pitcher in the last couple of years in that rotation. And I was very surprised that Brian Cashman made that move. But then you look at why they brought in Bader. Bader has been a great acquisition for them. He's a great defensive player, center fielder that can steal bases. And ever since he's been called up, he's been a big part of what this team has done over the last couple of weeks. So I know a lot of Yankee fans are questioning what, a guy like Brian Cashman has done over the years, but this is a man that has been very successful. He's probably the best GM in baseball. He's been the most successful GM in baseball in the last 30 years. And I think that you have to trust your executives on how they believe and what they believe they need to help them win and get over the hump, which the Yankees have not been since 2009. What are your thoughts? And I know Speedy said about the National League, and you brought up the Cardinals. What are your thoughts that going into the playoffs is important, winning, or just slipping into the playoffs are just kind of like, I guess crawling into the playoffs isn't good as a baseball team. Do you believe that? Do you believe you got to go into the playoffs, full house, full power, and do you believe it doesn't really matter? It's all a matter of how you set up your lineups, how you set up your rotation, and really these pitchers, how healthy they are.
I mean, I think the health of your pitching staff and the how tired is your pitching staff, that's extremely huge. That might be the biggest factor. You have to have all your pitching weapons ready for battle, and if they're pitching at like 85% or something, that's just not going to cut it. I don't really think, I think momentum can change on a dime. I think a team could go in with not much momentum at all, and they could have a walk-off victory in game one, and all of a sudden they have all the momentum in the world. So I do think talent and health are probably the two biggest factors.
I think that's what makes San Diego so dangerous, because I think the lineup what they have, and they're getting healthy. I think Hader has pitched better in the bullpen that we saw before he got traded from, obviously, your Brewers. I was very surprised he got traded, but the Brewers made out on that trade. I really do believe that. They got a lot of good young prospects. I think San Diego's all about win now mode, but I think out of all these teams, I'm talking about the American League and the National League. I think in the American League, the most dangerous team to the Yankees in Houston is Seattle. I think they're very dangerous. And I think the danger in the National League, everybody keeps thinking the Mets because of their Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom and St. Louis, what they have done with that lineup with Goldschmidt and Arenado, with the middle of that lineup, as talented as is, and probably winner and runner-up for the MVP in the National League. I think the most dangerous team for the National League is the San Diego Padres. Do you agree with me or you don't?
I don't, and it's because I just don't trust any of their hitters other than Machado and Soto. I maybe that'll be enough. I mean, maybe a couple of their other guys get hot, but I look at their lineup. To me, it's not a lineup that's built to go deep in the playoffs. Their rotation's good enough to carry them, and their bullpen's good enough to carry them. But they kind of, it's a top heavy lineup. You get past Soto and Machado, and if you're facing another team's ace or another team's number 2 starter, I don't think that pitcher's going to have a hard time with the rest of that lineup.
You don't like Cronenworth? He's a pretty good player.
He's fine. I mean, he just doesn't scare me though. I don't.
No, and a lot of a lot of teams aren't the Yankees. Okay, I mean, you don't have
you got to have that type of.
You don't have 9 players that have double-digit home runs. You have 7 players that have over 50 or more. It's very rare that the Dodgers that have a lineup like that. It's very hard.
Dodgers might have 12 guys with 10 home runs.
I mean those lineups are very hard to have. Those kind of lineups on your ball team.
You probably got the Yankees, the Astros, the Dodgers, the Jays, and maybe the Braves. Those are the teams that have World Series caliber lineups.